Today, we're looking at Noodler's Qternity. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now Noodler's Qternity is a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples, I put the ink into a different pen for a day, I then put it into a Noodler's Ahab with a modified flex nib to take my notes for this video. Now before we look at the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And with it immediately into water, you see this green line across the bottom that is really staying in place. It's beginning to dig in. Some of the green does push up, but the blue pushes entirely up the filter paper. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And that green that was across the bottom a bit on the original is very dark and very here on this particular chromatography. It's not moving. The blue does move just like it did with the original chromatography, which makes me say that the green is the permanent aspect of this particular ink. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. Now I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself fairly well. The blue does start to feather out just slightly, but not to the point of making the letters blurry. So if you do highlight in a note-taking situation, this one should be fairly safe. Water is reactivating and lifting the blue component only from this ink. All of the green is absolutely staying behind. Pen Flush did everything that water did and only slightly more, just barely more. I don't know that it's, really coming through on camera, but I don't feel like the Pen Flush is going to do it. Now, it only had 30 seconds. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper, although it did leave some yellow staining on the paper behind. If you had to use it, you would put the 1/3 bleach solution in, immediately get it out, and go to using water to flush that pen out, so you don't rust your metal parts. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Qternity has a viscosity of 2.47, making it normal and almost average. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Noodler's Qternity has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making it a fast drying ink. Now let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. I'm trying to take a look here at my notes. That's what I was afraid of. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen. It has some nice shading that's going on here. Like the Y is much darker than the NI in the Qternity. The L is much darker. So it gives very nice behavior going on here in what we're seeing. 6 seconds to dry. Had to add to my notes here. Oh my goodness. Horrible writing. I think everybody hates their writing. The medium is a slightly darker tone. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen. It does offer some very nice shading. Like the K in quick is much darker. The T in the is much lighter. Brown. The bottom of the B is dark. The R is dark. The O is light. The W is light. The N gets dark again. Beautiful shading.
8 seconds to dry. The scrubby of both show us plenty of color variation, and we do get plenty of color variation in both of these writing samples. The smear test shows that you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. Just wow, look at that one. No bleeding, lots of ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading comes through. The extra fine is a slightly lighter tone than the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shading. 10 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. Excuse me. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, beautiful shading throughout. The quick starts nice and dark, gets light, gets nice and dark again. Brown is a nice mid-tone all the way through. The underneath is much darker than over right next to it. Beautiful shading here, 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows no color variation, and we didn't get any, and the scrubby of the medium shows us color variation that we did get. The smear test, you could probably recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Rhodia, no bleeding, no ghosting. However, when I took my notes, I was using an Ahab, and I mean, I was seeing some flow issues here where you see a lot of railroading, and it happens a lot. And on top of that, when I turn the page, being a wetter pen, look, it's more aggressive than I thought. Not even worrying about all of the show through that's happening that's not here. A lot of spots coming through. A lot of spots bleeding through, but at least, you know, oops, nope. It did touch the page underneath. So it bled through and it touched the page with a very wet nib. So be warned on those very wet nibs. With this ink, it could bleed. It could touch the page underneath. Even with Rhodia. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading here. The extra fine is a slightly lighter tone that has no feather, spread, halo sheen. It does offer some spots of shading, as in it gives some darker spots. Like the is a little bit darker a word than the middle of brown. Brown starts nice and dark, works its way a little lighter. Lazy is a slightly lighter tone than we see with brown, so that, you know, it does offer some shading in here. Not tons in this case. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a lighter tone than we got with the 1.1, strangely. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and the shading that we see is better here. The starts light, gets dark. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark. Brown starts dark at the bottom of the B, but is light at the top of the B. Light in the R, really light in the OW, dark in the N. I say really light, that's for these tones. Fox starts light and gets dark. Beautiful stuff. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows almost no color variation. We really didn't see any. The medium shows some, looking far left to far right. We do see some here. The smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. So what happens with this blue ink when we change its background tone to a yellow? Well, the yellow Rhodia gives no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1, oops. Let's look at those tones. We get kind of an aquamarine. So we get that kind of teal turquoise color. That's neat because Noodlers tend to be a bit more saturated, so they're usually more opaque, and in this case it's affected the color, and I think the color here looks amazing. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the exact same tone with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. 7 seconds to dry. The medium is slightly lighter and the color looks way better for being slightly lighter. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen. There's spots of shading, and when the spots of shading show up, it is spot on. Like in the word over, starts nice and light, becomes dark at the E, super dark at the R. Brown starts dark, gets really light at the OW, and works to a mid-tone at the end. Quick, the K is really dark. The jumps, I see a dark down spot in the M and then it lightens up again. It's nice. Really nice here. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine showed us no color variation. We didn't get any in the smear test, the scrubby of the medium showed us nice color variation, and it was better looking in the writing. Not tons of it, but better looking. The smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. P. Berger, this is a French rule paper. It's a student grade paper. It didn't like this ink. There's a lot of bleeding. It does not come all the way through. You could not use the back of the page. It does not touch the page underneath. But ghosting is not even an issue because it's bleeding so deep into the page. The 1.1 has no spread. It has tiny feathers on it in a lot of spots. Not all the spots. Like the ITY, I see a ton of tiny little feathers. No halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine has some spread. It has no feathers, no halo, sheen, and no shade. 2 seconds to dry. The medium is the exact same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test, you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. White lines paper. Lots of bleed spots. Lots of them. Lots of show through. Strangely, not the medium. The extra fine did it. The 1.1 did it, but not the medium. I don't understand it, but that's what it is. The 1.1 has no feather or spread, no halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine has spread, no feathers. No halo, sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. Amazing. The medium has spread and no feathers. No halo, sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine and the medium looks like there's a little bit of color variation here, but we got none up here. And the smear test shows us why it dries almost instantly. You can't smear this ink. Get that smear out of here. And that is all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's Cuternity, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And in this case, I decided to choose one that complemented its fast-drying properties. And I went with Noodler's Bernanke Black, because it also dries fast. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Noodler's Cuternity? This is a great basic blue with the added benefit of giving you some shading through some of your writing, which is very rare to get in a fast drying ink, but it did give some very nice shading with that. Now, I experienced some flow issues when it came to broader, wetter pens. That could have been an isolated incident for me with my pen. But I did experience a little bit of flow issues, which I found strange because its viscosity was so middle of the road. But you just have to sort of experiment sometimes with what ink works best in a pen. Thanks for watching.